Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
In the 1930s, Patrick Hamilton, who's over in England, UK, wrote a play, and it was set in 1880s London. And what the play was about a married couple, and the husband was doing various things to basically convince his wife that she was going insane. And she was becoming anxious, he was disappearing, and he was trying to convince her that no, it's you that's the problem. And one of the things that he did was he would adjust the gas lights in the house. He would dim them, and when his wife was Bella, his name was Jack Manningham. When Bella would complain or mention that, the lights are dimming, or they're bright or whatever, he would say, "Oh, it's your imagination." And from this play, which ultimately became a movie, I think Vincent Price was in the movie, but at any rate, from this play, from this movie, we get the term gaslighting, to gaslight somebody. Now, what is gaslighting? We've heard that term in the media quite a bit, where somebody will ignite a situation where they'll, just kind of inflame something where it's not necessary to inflame it. I guess I don't want to use an example because there are people on both sides of the political divide listening to this, and I don't, both sides do it. You hear them do it. They take a situation and they just spin it one way or the other, spin it to its worst common denominator when that was not intended at all, just to kind of rile people up. But gaslighting, as the play was about, is a form of emotional abuse. This particular person, Jack Manningham, I think is his name, he was abusing emotionally and trying to emotionally manipulate Bella, his wife, and was an abusive relationship. There's no two way around it. It was an abusive relationship. I actually stumbled across a great video on YouTube that talks about various ways of gaslighting. The title of it is 10 Examples of What Gaslighting Sounds Like. And I'll go through a couple of those. I don't want to, I'll put the video, a link to the video in the show notes so you can go watch it. It's literally a 5-minute video. But I wanted to, certainly bring up the notion of gaslighting. This is a podcast about relationships. And when we think about relationships, we often think about these, kind of Pollyanna, these are wonderful things and positive and so on and so forth. And that's what I intend to have the podcast about. But there's a darker side to it. There's the notion of manipulation and coercion and things like that we do need to be out on the lookout for, because we're going to run into it. And you can try and avoid it. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you get into situations. I have been in situations where people have made threatening comments, not physically threatening, but just, hey, I'm going to pull business from you. I'm going to say bad things about you. Or I've had people say, I'll get calls from people saying, I'm just letting you know that I've talked to a number of people, and I don't want to say who they are, but I've talked to a number of people, and they're all kind of the mind that, this should be this way, whatever it is. I'm not saying one way or the other as to what I think, but all these other people, these unnamed people that I have been unofficially anointed to represent are saying this, and you need to change the way you're doing things. Otherwise, these unnamed people will be upset. It's a form of gaslighting. It's a form of getting me to. Maybe it's not emotionally abusive. Well, I guess it can be because it kind of your heart starts racing. It's like, oh my gosh, who are these people? I don't know. It's a form of gaslighting. And we run into these things, and so it's good to kind of know what it is, what it's out there, and to be able to call it what it is. In those situations, what I tend to do is I tend to take a deep breath, and I can't challenge the person. Well, who are the people? Well, I'm not going to say. Is it you? It's just it's a slippery slope at that point. I listen to what they have to say. I'll hang up the phone or get off the Zoom call, take a deep breath, and really think about, okay, do I really have an issue here? But anyhow, let's talk about a few of the different examples of gaslighting. Now, one of the disclaimers, or the disclaimer they make in the video, which I will make here, is that not everybody who makes these statements is actually gaslighting. Sometimes, so it's not the statement itself. It's really kind of the intent behind the statement. For example, the first statement they say, and again, I'm not going to go through all 10, but I will provide the link in the show notes. What did I do to you? Was the first one. Now, again, somebody could say, what did I do to you? And truly be ignorant as to how they wronged you. But at times, people will throw out, well, what did I do to you? Knowing full well what they did, but just kind of leading you to question, or actually go public with, what it is they did. Sometimes I've encountered this where somebody, well, what did I do to you? And I'll say, well, you did this. Oh, that's not a big deal. Just kind of brushing it off. It's, everybody does that. It's not a big deal. Which is kind of, an emotional abuse, a psychological abuse that, hey, you're the problem. You're hypersensitive. It's not a big deal. Everybody does those things. I was just kidding, sort of a thing. And again, it might be innocent. It might be innocent, an innocent statement that somebody's making, they innocently not knowing that they did wrong. But in situations, and the situations, there are situations where they'll, what did I do to you? Oh, what did I do to you? Is, kind of a tone like, well, they know what they did. They're just not owning up to it, is really what it boils down to. And just as Patrick Hamilton did in his play, Gaslight, the play, 1938, I think it came out, just as he did there, he was having the husband, Jack Manningham, get his wife, Bella, to question her reality. He was dimming the lights. He was doing other things, moving furniture, making things disappear. And then when she said they were disappearing, just, you're mistaken. Getting her to question her reality. And so, again, another statement might be something like, everyone around you is not the problem. You're the problem. Now, again, that could be true. That could, but it could also be a situation, and you tend to know, right? I tend to know when I've messed up, maybe not all the time, but when somebody's coming at me and it's like there's these mythical people out there that nobody wants to fess up who they are. Yeah, I know it's really probably that person, but when somebody's coming and saying, everybody agrees with me, you're the problem. Nobody likes you, you're the problem. Getting you to question your own behaviors, your own memory, your own reality of or perception of reality. And they're trying to manipulate some sort of behavior, or what they might be trying to do is just try to make you feel bad. And it does. When people do these things, it does make you feel bad. And you, to the extent you can, you kind of need to get away from that person if at all possible. That's not always easy, right? If you're in a marital situation, it's not easy. If you're in a business situation, it's not easy. If it's a key employee or a key client, it's not always easy when these things are happening. A key person, I guess it's not easy if you're on a long camping trip either. But the point is that you can't always just walk away from these situations. Here's another one. I don't remember saying that. I think you're making that up. To me, I see that a lot in the political arena. You see people from both sides will come up with things and they'll totally contradict themselves. And again, both sides are guilty of it. They are both guilty of it in equal measure. They are both guilty of it. And, they'll change positions, they'll change sides, and just kind of I don't remember saying that. I didn't say that. I didn't mean that back then. That's doctored audio. We all know it's not, and we just kind of move on. And that's American politics, if you will. At least for now, it's American politics. It might change. But in a personal setting, someone, I don't remember saying that. That's not what I said. Again, they're getting you to, they're denying it. They're getting you to question the reality. For whatever reason, they're backpedaling on an issue, whatever it might be, but they're getting you to question your memory is really what it boils down to. And I'll have people who do that. I don't remember saying that. I don't, and I'm scurrying to try and find the email where they said it. And it's a waste of time, right? It's a waste of energy. And when people are gaslighting, and again, not all people saying that, hey, I don't remember saying that, that could be legitimately true, but we tend to know when it's not legitimately true. We tend to, we're just good at it. I don't know why people lie. We're good at picking up those hints that people are lying. What we're not good at is confronting people with, that's a lie. And it can be for obvious reasons. I mean, if somebody's got a power over us, they're a boss, a key employee, someone in our peer group that holds a lot of sway with others, you have to be careful as to how you deal with these things. But we tend to know when people are not giving us a straight answer or when they're gaslighting. But I think it's good to know these things. And again, watch the video. I'll put the link in the show notes. It's good to know these things just so you can kind of, okay, you know what? They're dimming the lights on me. They're telling me the lights are not dim. It's my own reality. But you can kind of, in a quiet moment, say, okay, what do I know to be the truth? How can I assess the truth? Somebody's saying that, well, everybody agrees with me. Nobody agrees with you. We should know that we have permission. We've given ourselves permission to take a step back in a quiet moment and decide for ourselves what is really true and how we truly need to act. I tend to not make decisions when I'm being pressured like this. I tend to just, and again, people, I guess, will gaslight and say, wow, you're climbing up on this. No, I just want a moment to think about it. And one of the things I have done, I was the victim of being gaslit at one point. Somebody really pressing me on something. I've talked to a lot of people, and this is what they think, and people are going to be really angry if you don't do this. And I can't remember what this was or who the person was. I just remember kind of that anxiety. And what I came back to them with was, wow, it seems like you have really put a lot of thought into this. Yeah, I have. It seems like you've talked to a lot of people too. Yeah, I have. And all I hit them with was, well, then please give me the opportunity to do my own soul searching and to do my own reconnaissance or my own vetting of people and having those conversations and truly getting at the issue myself before I make a decision. You had the time to decide. You've had the time to look into this. Now, can I please have time to look into this as well? And that puts them in a hard position. It puts them in a really hard position because if, of course, they don't want you to take the time, but if they don't give you the time, then all of a sudden they're being unreasonable. No, you can't take the time to be thoughtful. They're not going to do that. And the first time I did it, I've done it a couple times. First time I did it, it just stopped them in their tracks. Oh, okay. And there were other people around, and they could see kind of what was happening, and it just diffused the whole situation. So the point I'm trying to come across with here in the in this episode is gaslighting is real. You know, Patrick Hamilton came up with this play in the 1930s, and it was a movie based on things that were, based on a setting in the 1880s of London. It's not like just because we use the term gaslighting now that it's something new. This has been around for a while. This sort of psychological, this emotional abuse, this relationship abuse is out there. And it's not just a political thing. It's not just a marital thing. It's a relationship thing. And it happens. And you need to have the courage and confidence when these things are happening to you to basically excuse yourself from the situation, give yourself the opportunity to step away and to assess it for yourself. What are the real risks with respect to this? Chances are when you kind of back away from things, you start to realize that most people are reasonable. And there probably isn't, assuming you're not terribly wrong, but it gives you an opportunity to kind of examine your own actions, your own conscience with respect to things. Assuming those are somewhat pointed in the right direction, you'll step away and realize that the risk really isn't as big as the gaslighter might indicate. And the things that they're trying to convince you of are really not true. By the same token, and perhaps I'll do an episode on this at some point, if you find yourself gaslighting, and I think we probably have all been guilty of it from time to time if we're honest with ourselves. I know I'm really going to kind of do some soul searching and think about, okay, when have I gaslit in a situation? I'm sure I have. I'm sure we all have. Maybe it's not been totally mischievous or malevolent, but we've done it. And we just need to stop ourselves and say, okay, this isn't fair. It's not fair. It's not fair to put somebody in that situation. What are we trying to achieve? Is there a better way of achieving the issue? So if somebody comes at us and says, you hurt my feelings, rather than coming back and saying, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, which is a gaslighting phrase. It's in the program. I'm sorry you feel that way, which is kind of a non-apologetic apology. It's not an apology. Let's just put it that way. But it's just a way of saying, well, I said I was sorry. No, you said you were sorry that I felt that way. You didn't say sorry for what you said. But what you do is rather rephrase that and just say, can you help me understand why it is you felt the way you did? If we truly don't understand. If we truly know we're in the wrong, then saying, you know what, I was in the wrong. You know what, I was in the wrong. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I did that. Gaslighting. It's a thing.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.